What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. So this weekend, I actually got to go watch fights in person, so that was really exciting. It's been a little while. I think it's been a couple months since the last time I went and watched fights. And the last time I watched them, I just went to a kickboxing event. So this was actually MMA and kickboxing. So I'm really excited because I'm going to be covering those fights as well as kind of touching on some of the events from the UFC this weekend, and then also kind of doing some predictions for the upcoming pay-per-view on Saturday for the BMF title. So Poirier versus Gaethje. So lots to talk about today, a lot to get into, but I'm going to start off with covering the Shamrock Fighting Championship event last night. And this was even more exciting because it was actually Shamrock's 25th anniversary. So it was a really special event. They had a Hall of Fame induction. There were some UFC fighters there. It was really exciting. And it's just really fun to go to an event like this right in my backyard. I mean, it was like 20 minutes away from my place, so it didn't take me very long to get there. It didn't take me long to get home, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And this is probably my fourth or fifth time going to a Shamrock event, so I've been to their events before, but I was really excited for this one just because I looked at the card and I was like, there's some really good fights on there. So yeah, it was a good time, and I'm really glad that I went and glad that I got to go and support the local MMA scene here, because I feel like sometimes, you know, we support the UFC, we support the big fighters, but sometimes we forget about the smaller guys. And where does everybody have to start? They have to start somewhere. They got to start with amateur fights, or maybe they start with a, local regional promotion. You know, they don't just go straight into the UFC. So I think it's important to support local fights and to go to the fights and support all your local fighters, because that's how they're going to get to the UFC. They're not going to do it without support. So go support your local fighters and go to a show that is, whether it's 20 minutes away or maybe it's a couple hours away, make the drive and go check it out, because I promise you it's a ton of fun. And you will get to see a fighter before they actually make it big. So you never know what's going to happen. I remember the first time I ever watched Evan Elder fight was in Shamrock. And it was probably at least a couple years ago that I saw him fight for the first time. And now he's in the UFC and he just won his first fight in the UFC. So it's like, yeah, you never know. And speaking of Evan Elder, I think he was actually there, because I'm pretty sure I saw on their Facebook post that he was there, and Joaquin Buckley was there too. Matt Hughes was there. So yeah, the stars were out. It was fun. But yeah, let's get into it. So I did take notes this time, which I'm really glad I did, because the last local show I covered, I did not take any notes. I was just kind of watching, and I totally forgot like what happened. So I was like, this time I'm going to write stuff down. Shout out to Amber too. So I brought my friend Amber with me, and she really helped me with, like, you know, keeping track of all the different fighters and the weight classes and all that stuff. So shout out to Amber for helping me out with with documenting all of this. But yeah, it was really fun. There were some great fights, and we'll just start with the first fight of the night. So the first fight to kick off the prelims. Now, I'm pretty sure the prelim fights were all amateur fights. I could be wrong on that, but I didn't see any that looked like they were pro fights. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume those are all amateur. And then the main card, I believe those were all pro fights. So that's kind of how it works. So it's both amateur and pro. So it's not just pro fights on here, which is fun, because it's like, then you get to see their career really evolve. Like, you get to see them, maybe they fight on the prelims and they're an amateur, and then maybe the next time you see them fight, they're on the main card and they're a pro. So it's so cool to see these fighters evolve and see how their career plays out. It's exciting. But first fight of the night was Colton Rogers versus Reggie Morris. And Reggie Morris actually won that decision. It was 30-27 for a unanimous decision for Reggie Morris. And that was a bantamweight fight. So I really always love watching the smaller weight classes. And I know sometimes people think that like the heavier weight classes are more exciting or better, or I don't know. Some people say stuff like that, and I'm just like, what? Makes no sense. The smaller weight classes a lot of times have the most exciting fights because a lot of them are wrestlers. A lot of them, they have a lot of experience. And also there's more competition sometimes in those lower weight classes, like lightweight and bantamweight and featherweight. Like you'll notice that the pace is faster in a lot of those fights. And also it's more action packed. Like it's just fun. 'Cause they're smaller. They don't get tired as quickly, and, they don't have that one punch knockout power as much as you would see in like a heavyweight or a light heavyweight fight. So you're going to see a lot of times more back and forth, action. So I think, yeah, that's always exciting, but yeah, so it was a really fun fight. It was just a great way to kick off the card with, a fun, fast-paced bantamweight fight. It was really exciting, and congratulations to Reggie Morris for winning that one. I mean, won every single round, 30-27 on the judges' scorecards, so that's a great win. And then the second fight was a kickboxing fight. So the first fight was MMA. The second fight was kickboxing, and that was Zach Lowe versus Emmanuel Alida. And Emmanuel Alida won that fight via TKO. So it was a ref stoppage, I believe. Yeah, great performance. That was another fast-paced fight. It was like, I don't know. It seemed like it was just all of a sudden the fight was just over, and I was like, what happened? I'm looking at Amber. I'm like, what just happened? But it was a good fight. It was fun. And it was the first kickboxing fight of the card, so that's always nice. But yeah, and then the next fight was Alec Reed versus Jay Jones. So another bantamweight fight, and this was an MMA fight too. And Alec Reed ended up winning that via a rear naked choke. So that was super, super exciting. I was waiting I'm like, who's gonna get the first submission of the night? Because knockouts are great and knockouts are really fun. But when I'm watching MMA, I love to see impressive grappling. Like to me, that is the most fun part of watching MMA, is seeing like the submissions, seeing great wrestling. And that was one thing that I noticed about Alec Reed, is he has really, really good wrestling. And some people might think, sorry, I had something in my teeth. Some people might think that being a submission specialist or having great jiu-jitsu is what it takes to get submissions. But sometimes people forget that in order to get those submissions, you have to first get in a position to be able to submit your opponent. And keep in mind, in MMA, they're usually 5-minute rounds. So you don't have as much time as you do in like a pure grappling situation sometimes, especially if it's like when they go until somebody gets submitted, like in that situation. So it's basically, there's not like a time limit. I don't know all the specific rules of like the different jiu-jitsu tournaments and all that kind of stuff. It's something that I definitely want to educate myself on more, and maybe even compete in one of those organizations down the road, just to kind of learn more about it and see how the whole process works of competing in jiu-jitsu. But it's something that really fascinates me because, sometimes jiu-jitsu doesn't necessarily translate to MMA the way that people think it does. But I think when you can combine great jiu-jitsu with great wrestling, that's ideal, because then you can first control where the fight goes. So you can get them into a position where you can submit them, and then you can use those jiu-jitsu skills and your submission skills to finish the fight. So I just really love to see a fighter that not only has the ability to submit their opponent in great submission game, but also has great wrestling to set it up and to get to that point. So shout out to Alec Reed, great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu. Yeah, great fight. And then after that fight was Cody Post versus Anthony Gillick. This was another MMA fight. So this one, Cody actually won in the third round. It was 1 minute, 5 seconds into the third round, I believe. And it was a TKO. So he did a great job of keeping a high guard and just staying busy. Like I noticed he kept his hands like right here. And it kind of reminded me a lot of Julius Ingliskus. I don't know if any of you guys know who he is, but he fought for the Bellator light heavyweight title about a little over a year ago. He fought Vadim Nemkov. And it kind of reminded me, he has like a kind of a similar guard that Julius has. And that's something that Julius has had a lot of success with. But that was just one thing that I noticed about him. And it seemed to be working for him. And he really didn't let his guard down. You know, as they say, don't let your guard down. But that was one thing that I noticed that he did really well. And yeah, just staying busy, continuing to throw punches at him. And, you know, Gillick kind of looked a little bit tired in the second round. So maybe just that pace that he was keeping up was maybe causing Gillick to fade a little bit. But I mean, they both did a fantastic job. It was a great fight. I thought in the third round, it was pretty obvious that Gillick was pretty tired. And also too, like some people forget that, you know, if you haven't fought in a while, or if this is your first fight, or maybe who knows what it is, but sometimes you get an adrenaline dump too. And it doesn't matter how well you conserve your energy. An adrenaline dump is just like, maybe you have one round, you do really well, and then all of a sudden you're just exhausted. And I think sometimes people forget about that. So it's like, you can have great cardio and still get tired easily. So I did notice that he was kind of starting to fade, and then Cody really started turning it on once he probably noticed that, which is smart. But he still had power. So, and that's what they say, the last thing to go is your power, because even though Gillick looked tired and he looked like, you know, he really didn't want to be in there, he looked like he could still potentially win the fight. Like, he was in that fight until the very end. He was still throwing clean shots at him. And yeah, it was a great fight. Ultimately, I think it was a minute and 5 seconds in the third round when Cody got the TKO. So I believe it was ground and pound, but so he had Gillick in kind of a interesting position. And I think that's why he threw, what I thought were maybe potentially some illegal shots to the back of the head, which this is amateur fights, so that stuff's going to happen more often. As fighters get more experience, you know, you see less and less of that, but it does happen in amateur fights, unfortunately. It's just one of those things that whether or not he did it on purpose, it's just one of those things that just sometimes takes a little bit of time for fighters to kind of learn to be like, oh, don't do that. Okay. And, you know, I've heard I've heard of, you know, fighters in the UFC. I've seen them all the time getting hit in the back of the head. It doesn't happen as often as it does in amateur fights, but I did notice that. I did want to point it out. I thought the ref maybe could have done a better job at like looking at that. That would be my only criticism there. But other than that, it was a fantastic performance. I don't think it would have changed. Like, if he didn't hit him in the back of the head, and he wasn't hitting him that hard, at least I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. He wasn't hitting me in the head, so I don't know. But I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the fight either way. And I don't think it was intentional. Sometimes, I guess, you know, when you're in a weird position like that where you can't really tell where the side or the back of their head is, I could see that being kind of hard to know where you're throwing the punches. And also, it's a fight. I mean, you got your adrenaline pumping. It's like, yeah, that's just something that with experience, I think he'll be able to fix that. But yeah, I did want to point that out. But great win. Congratulations to Cody. I was really impressed with that one as well. And then after that was the women's fight, the first women's fight of the card. So Ashley Pryor versus Morgan Walgren. So this was a kickboxing fight, and this was at 115 pounds, I believe. So women's strawweight. And it ended up going to a split decision. So this is a really interesting fight. And I would have to watch it again to really say, like, okay, this is definitely who won the fight. But all I know is that both those girls in there gave it 100%. And they did not have any ounce of quit in them. Like, they could have gone for 3 more rounds and they'd probably still be standing in there. So it was good. It was good back and forth. I think Ashley she does a really great job of being aggressive and coming forward. And that's something that you see kind of a little bit more with shorter fighters and fighters who are a little bit smaller. Like, I joke around about this, but last time I covered her fight, I was like, she's like a little pit bull. I'm like, yeah, she is. And she did it again. Like, this time she was a little pit bull again. And it was fun. It's always fun watching her fight. So, and I was really excited for this because I knew it was going to be action-packed. I knew that she probably wouldn't get finished. I knew it would be a fun fight. I knew it was going to be back and forth. So I was like, okay, this is going to be fun. But I think the girl that she fought was quite a bit taller than her. I think she was like 5'5" or 5'6". And Ashley is 5'1". So in kickboxing, when you're the shorter fighter, it's tough to close the distance because in MMA, you have grappling. So you can use wrestling. You can take them down to close the distance. You can do it that way. And then in boxing, you don't have to worry about the kicks. So it's easier to kind of get in their range because what Morgan was doing in order to keep Ashley to distance, she was throwing like some teep kicks, and she was using her kicks not to hurt Ashley, but to keep her at range. So she was trying to keep her at a distance so that way Ashley couldn't get in the pocket. Because when you're the shorter fighter, you want to get in the pocket. You want to get down and dirty. You want to get in there because that's how you're going to close that gap and avoid getting head kicked or getting leg kicked or whatever they're going to throw at you. So I thought Ashley did a great job of trying to get in the pocket, but Morgan, I think, was just a tiny step ahead of her, a little bit. But Ashley was still put on a great performance, and she did in her last fight too. So I'm really excited to see her fight again. I think if she just makes some little tweaks, I think she'll definitely win her next fight. I really do. And I was really impressed with Morgan too. She was very composed in there. And she, like I said, she did a great job of using her range. And she definitely knows she has that advantage. She has that reach advantage and height advantage. And she used it. And she used those kicks to kind of, hey, Ashley, get away from me, little pit bull. Like, hey. And it worked. It worked because she ended up winning. The scorecards were 30-27, 30-27 from two judges for Morgan Walgren, and then one judge scored it 29-28 for Ashley Pryor, which I wouldn't have been mad if they gave it to Ashley. But like I said, I would have to rewatch the fight again to really say, I don't want to just say, oh yeah, Ashley should have won the fight just because I like Ashley, like, of course I like Ashley, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get emotional about it until I watch the fight again. Which hopefully they'll post it. I haven't seen them post it yet. I really want to rewatch it, and just kind of see, those little things that Ashley did and that Morgan did in that fight that really, made it what it was. But yeah, I thought, like I said, Ashley, she's a little pit bull. She was throwing really nice jabs and 1-2s. I think maybe one thing that might help, and I'm not a coach or anything, so I'm not going to try to coach her, but maybe like throwing longer combinations, maybe that would help, especially with somebody that's taller than her. I think that might help a little bit, throwing more longer combinations. But again, I mean, these fighters they're amateur fighters, and this is like the beginning of their fighting career. So they are still learning and growing. So it's good to observe and, give them feedback. But I think sometimes we're a little bit too critical of amateur fighters and maybe even lower level pro fighters, just because like they're new, they're still learning, and they're gonna get better. They're gonna get better. They're gonna learn things. They're going to make improvements. They're gonna make those adjustments. You just gotta be patient. You gotta let them cook a little bit. So I'm really, really excited to see both of those ladies fight again. It was a fun fight. I really, really enjoyed watching it, and I enjoyed watching Ashley's last fight too. And I'm just really excited to see where she takes her career with kickboxing, and see if maybe she does a boxing fight or an MMA fight. Who knows? I would love to see Ashley in the boxing ring. I really, really would. And I mean, I think she's a great kickboxer too, because she actually has some good kicks, and she threw a couple leg kicks that landed. I can't remember 100%. Like I said, I need to rewatch it. but she's got some good kicks too. But I really would like to see her in the boxing ring. I think she would do really, really well as a boxer, but that's just me. But great job, Ashley. And the other thing too is I know Ashley, she's kind of, been going through a lot in her life. Her dog died, and it was like not even that long before the fight. And I was thinking about that leading up to this. I'm like, man, I don't even think I'd be able to show up. I mean, I would, because I'd be like, well, I told him I would, and I would show up, but like mentally, I wouldn't be there, because I remember when my dog died, and that was a little over a year ago when my dog died. Obviously, I have Dolly now, but my previous dog, my Shih Tzu, Mocha, I remember when he died, and that was rough. It took me weeks to mentally recover from that. So I just wanted to say that, because I hope that Ashley is recovering from that, and I hope that, she's doing well, because I know how hard that is to lose a pet. And if you've never had a dog, or if you've never had a dog pass away, it seriously is one of the hardest things to deal with. It's just like losing a family member. It really is. I mean, it's hard. So, I just wanted to say that, because it just goes to show, like, you really never know what's going on in these fighters' lives outside the ring. So sometimes people are so quick to judge and so quick to, oh, they suck, they quit, blah, blah, blah. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. It's like, can you imagine going in the ring and you're dealing with something like that, or dealing with anything, dealing with just regular life? And, you never know what kind of day these people are having. You never know what kind of week they're having. So I think sometimes it's good to just, put yourself in their shoes a little bit more. I hear things that fans say sometimes, and they say this stuff about UFC fighters mostly, but they, I'm sure people say all kinds of things about amateur fighters, pro fighters, whoever. And it's just like, yeah, I think we should take a little bit of time to educate ourselves a little bit more as fans, and also have a little bit more empathy, and know that, yeah, they're human beings. They are human beings. They deal with the same problems we do, and they have to fight on top of all that. And a lot of, like I said in my last episode, my other podcast, when I was interviewing another pro fighter, you never know what's going on in their life, because a lot of these fighters have full-time jobs, they have families, they have obligations besides fighting. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. But congratulations to Morgan and Ashley. Keep grinding, keep pushing. You will win the next one. I know you will. I believe in you, girl. And then the next fight was Gabriel Stein versus Nuriel Henry. So this was an MMA fight. And I think this was Nuriel's first MMA fight. I was trying to see if he had fought in MMA before, and I didn't find anything. So I wasn't sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure this was his first fight. And if so, that's a heck of a way to make your debut. So I'll kind of break down how this fight went down. So started off, Gabe took him down pretty early, I want to say. So Nuriel, well, I guess I'll give you some background on both of these fighters. So Gabriel is a wrestler. Obviously, he's got kickboxing, he's got boxing, he's got wrestling, he's got jiu-jitsu, he's got it all. But mostly he's a wrestler. That's what he's known for. And then Nuriel, he's a kickboxer. So like I said, this was his first MMA fight, or at least I think it was. And he is a capoeira fighter, and I've covered his fights before. His last fight I covered. And he did use that in this fight. He did a little like cartwheel kick or something. I don't know what it was, but it was, it was something flashy. But in capoeira, for those of you who don't know, it's a Brazilian style of martial arts that kind of combines like dance and kickboxing a little bit. Michel Pereira, who's fighting on Saturday, that's his style of fighting as well. But I'm not going to lie. When I first saw this matchup, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I was like, that's just a stylistically like kind of, it might be a little dangerous for Nuriel, because I just know that Gabe has incredible wrestling. So I was just like, a dominant wrestler versus a kickboxer, a capoeira kickboxer. I'm like, yikes. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm like, this could either go really well for Nuriel or it could go really bad and he could get taken down and just get ragdolled. I'm like, I don't know. And he surprised me. Now, here's how the fight went down. So, beginning of the fight, Nuriel was, throwing some kicks, and then he threw that little fancy kick, the cartwheel kick or whatever it was. And then pretty much shortly after that, he got taken down. And I think that style works really well when you're fighting another striker, but when you're going against a wrestler, you got to be careful with throwing kicks, because their number one goal is to take you down, and they know that they have that advantage against you. So they're watching every move you make, and they're like, oh, there's an opportunity to take you down. So Gabe capitalized on that opportunity, took Nuriel down, and it was interesting. So pretty dominant first round for Gabe, and then he had a really dominant start to the first round. I actually thought Nuriel might get finished. So he had Nuriel on his back, and he was on top, and he was, I can't remember if he was trying to go for a submission or what exactly he was trying to do, but I know the first part of that round, I mean, it took Gabe a matter of seconds to get Nuriel to the ground. And then once he got him to the ground, I was like, oh no, he's like, he might be in trouble. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then out of nowhere, Nuriel reversed him, got on top, or maybe he didn't get on top, but he got his back. He got a hold of his back somehow. I can't remember exactly how he did it, but he got his back. And I mean, it didn't take but maybe 10 seconds. And then Gabe tapped for a rear naked choke. So that's a heck of a debut for Nuriel. And what makes it more impressive, because it's like, if you look at Gabe's record and you look at Nuriel's record, Gabe's not had a ton of MMA fights. But if you look at the time between his first few fights and his last two fights, it's 10 years apart. He took 10 years off from fighting. And I think it was because he broke his back, I want to say. I can't remember exactly what the whole situation was, but he injured his back somehow. And Gabe was actually a wrestler at Lindenwood, so a D1 wrestler. And then he started doing MMA. I think it was like 2012 or something, maybe, was his first fight. And then he didn't come back until last year, and he won that fight. And that fight was, that was last year. He fought, I can't remember the name. And that was a great fight too. But I think that's what really makes this win so much more impressive for Nuriel, is because of the caliber of opponent that he beat. The caliber of the opponent that he fought just makes all the difference in the world. Because if he would have choked out another kickboxer, it would have been impressive, but it wouldn't have been nearly as impressive as getting a submission against an incredible wrestler. So I thought that was a great performance. I thought Gabe had a great performance too, though. I thought Gabe won almost every second of the fight until he got choked out. So, man, that's got to be frustrating. You win the whole fight, you're up, the first round, you're up the first half of the second round, and then you get choked out, and it's like, oh my gosh, I would have been so mad. But but it was a great performance from both of them. I'm really excited to see both of them fight again. And great performance. Congratulations, Nuriel, on a great win. After that was another female fight. So you guys know me. I love watching women's MMA and women's kickboxing. And this was a kickboxing fight between Hannah Lavely and Kayla Williams. So I actually think I went to high school with Hannah Lavely. And I have a lot of mutual friends with her, so I usually always try to check out like what she has going on when she's fighting. And she's just a really cool person. I mean, to be able to have the guts to get in the ring it's just, people don't understand. And then as a woman to do it, because it's like you get so much more hate as a woman, as a female, you know, doing kickboxing, doing MMA, doing combat sports, because I don't know what it is. It's just like some people just don't like it. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I like it. I support it. And I hope that we see more of it, honestly, because I think that women's MMA and women's combat sports has a lot of potential. And I think eventually it will get to the level, you know, where people are really talking about it the same way that they talk about men's MMA. So, and Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, a lot of those pioneers of women's MMA have a lot to do with that. But yeah, anyways, so Kayla Williams ended up winning that fight. She won via unanimous decision. It was 30-27, I think, across the board for all the judges. Now, I thought she won every round. I really did. But I didn't think it was like by a huge margin. Like, Hannah did put up a good fight. You know, she didn't make it easy for her. So it was an impressive win for Kayla, but Hannah did a great job of showing that she has heart, you know, staying in there. She was just taking punches like it was nothing. And she was fighting at a heavier weight class too. She was fighting at 140. So the girl that she was fighting, I think, was 5'10", Kayla. And Hannah, I believe, is 5'5". So pretty big gap in height. And again, in kickboxing, you know, that's tough. It's tough when you're the shorter fighter because, like I said, you got to close the distance. And Kayla did a great job too, of keeping that distance and using her range. Hannah took some big shots. She took some big shots, and keep in mind, she's fighting in a heavier weight class, so those shots are gonna hurt a lot harder than they are at a lower weight class. But she did a great job of staying in there. She didn't even look fazed by it. I mean, she's like, yeah, keep going. I'm good. And she's got such a great attitude. Like, I already saw her on Facebook. I think she posted in her story, like, I don't remember what she posted, but it seems like she's in good spirits. So it's always good to see that too. Like, if somebody loses, you know, it's better to see them like handle it with class than be like a sore loser about it and complain and like, you know, and I don't know how I would handle it if I was a fighter. So I can't even speak to that, but I'm glad that she's not like super upset by it, because she put on a great fight. It was so much fun to watch, and I'm really excited to see both of them fight again. Kayla Williams, she really impressed me. And like I said, she's, you know, pretty tall. She's 5'10", so she's got a great frame for kickboxing. And she was very she looked very composed in there. She looked very like she knows what the heck she's doing. Like, that was the vibe I got from her. She's like, yeah, this is what I do, baby. This is what I do. So congratulations to Kayla. That was a great performance against Hannah, who's incredibly tough and another super talented fighter. So hats off to both those ladies. That was a great fight. And then after that was a MMA fight. So I think this was at 155, or it was supposed to be at 155. Unfortunately, Jordan Krifka missed weight on that fight, so he weighed in at 159, and Cody McGee weighed in at 153, so a little bit below the limit, I think, because 155, yeah, because it was a lightweight fight. It was a title fight, actually. So 155 would be the limit. So unfortunately, yeah, he didn't make weight, but Cody still won, so it's okay. And I always wonder, you know, sometimes when a fighter misses weight and they have like a little bit of a weight advantage, it does give them an advantage. But a lot of times what I've noticed is that when a fighter has missed weight, sometimes it's indicative of a bad weight cut. So that you never know. When a fighter misses weight, it could really either go one of two ways. Either it works in their advantage because they're bigger, they're stronger, they have more power, they're not as dehydrated, or on the other hand, they had a really bad weight cut and they didn't do the proper things in their camp to prevent that from happening, or they're simply cutting too much weight. So I don't know what the issue was there, but I'm sure whatever it was, he'll learn from it and move forward and not miss weight the next time. So, you know, and again, these are amateur fights, so they're still learning, they're still growing, and it's hard. It is hard. Even just most people wouldn't be able to get in the ring, first of all. But I think a good majority of people wouldn't even be able to make weight for fights. Like, the weight cutting process is horrendous. Like, it's not something anybody wants to do. Like, I think I would rather just fight than cut weight. Like, if I had to pick one, like, hey, you can either cut weight for the fight or you can get in the ring and fight. I think I would rather just fight. Like, because the weight cutting process just seems like so intense and difficult and just like a nightmare. Like, I would just, that would be all I would be having anxiety about is the weight cut. So, yeah. So hopefully, yeah, they will kind of learn from that and get better and learn better ways to cut weight. And that, yeah. And like I said, that's something that you see a lot in amateur fights too. It's just, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to learn how to cut weight properly. And you never know if they're dealing with an injury or something that might make it harder for them to cut weight, or if their body's just not cooperating. But it's always good to see people make weight, for sure. So hopefully he will take from that and learn for the next time. And yeah. But anyways, great performance from Cody McGee. I noticed that he was throwing a lot of great knees and really just doing a good job closing the distance and staying busy. It was just overall a great performance. There wasn't a whole lot of it that I could even criticize. I mean, it was just, yeah, he did a great job. I mean, he won all 3 rounds. It was 30-27, unanimous decision. So that's exactly what you want. And I know a lot of people do like to see knockouts and they do like to see the submissions, or think, oh, they won by decision, so that's not as good of a win if you win by knockout. And it's like, not necessarily. Because here's why. If you win by decision, you are showing your fans, you're showing spectators, you're showing the promotion, you're showing everybody, or your future opponents, like, hey, I have cardio. So if we have to go 3 rounds, I'm good. I can hang. And I think sometimes it's actually better for a fighter to win, because then it's like, you can't say it's a fluke. You know, you can't say they got lucky. You can't say anything like that, because they truly won on the scorecards. So I thought that was very impressive. And he showed all those things. He's got great striking, great cardio, all that stuff. So yeah, fantastic job. And then after that, we flipped to the main card. So now we're getting into the pro fights. So the first fight on the main card was Pete DeLeon versus Thomas Thatcher. And this was a pro kickboxing fight. So, and it was at 155. Yeah, it was at 155. So another lightweight fight. And Thomas Thatcher actually ended up winning that fight via a round 1 TKO. So the ref stopped it. I was a little confused, I'm not going to lie. Like, I didn't know what was going on. Because it was like, I think Pete got knocked down and he got back up. He looked a little wobbled, but I think he was just trying to figure out like where to go in the octagon, like to get back in the fight. Like, I think he was just trying to figure out like, oh, do I go over here? And he like stepped over. And I wonder if maybe the ref saw that and saw his body language and thought, oh, he's wobbled. Like we got to stop this fight. So he like waved it off. But I was kind of confused because I'm like, oh, I thought he was getting back up. I mean, I don't know. Would it have changed the outcome of the fight? Who knows? I mean, it looked like Thatcher was really trying to win that fight. So, I mean, he was throwing some really nice combinations at him, and Pete started off really good too. So I wasn't sure how that fight was going to go until, he got knocked down. Then I'm like, ooh, but I thought he was going to keep going. I didn't think the ref was going to stop it. And sometimes in these promotions where, you're not quite at the UFC level, you're not even quite at the Bellator PFL level. So you see a little bit more earlier stoppages, which I'd always rather see an early stoppage than a late stoppage, to me, just to protect the health of the fighters. When you get to the UFC and you're fighting in title fights, sure, let them fight to the death. But if this is the beginning of their career, or if they have like a day job, you know, like we don't really want to see them get their face punched in the canvas. We really don't. So I think it's better to err on the side of caution in these kind of fights, because, you know, you really don't want to risk any damage to somebody's brain or injuries, or any kind of concussions. So, like I said, I'd rather see an early stoppage than a late stoppage. But I did think it was a little confusing the way that the stoppage happened. Like, I don't know. I was just a little thrown off by it. But maybe the ref saw something that I didn't see. He did look wobbled, though. He definitely did. But Pete's tough. I mean, I thought he could have kept going, but who knows? But great win for Thomas Thatcher. I mean, he was throwing some nasty combinations at Pete, and yeah, he looked great. He looked fantastic. So, and really, that's kind of what led to him getting knocked down, was he was just stringing together combinations. So if he would have kept doing that, I mean, eventually he would have probably either knocked him out or got another knockdown or whatever. But great fight either way. I think Pete said that was his last fight, which that's kind of sad. I'm like, man, this is the first time I've watched you fight, and this is the last time, because I was really excited. But hopefully, I don't know, maybe he'll fight again. Who knows? But he said it was his last fight, so I'll take his word for it. But he did a great job, and Thomas Thatcher, congratulations. That was a great win. Weird stoppage, but that's okay. Like I said, rather be early than late, for sure. Okay, so the rest of the fights on the card were all MMA fights, and the fight after that was Jackson McVeigh versus James Regina. So I was really hyped for this fight. I think this was the fight I was most excited for on this card, because I'm pretty familiar with Jackson McVeigh. He actually has fought in LFA, I believe, twice as a pro, and then I think he even fought for LFA as an amateur as well. But if you don't know about LFA is another fighting promotion where fighters kind of transition from LFA to the UFC. Justin Gaethje is an example of a fighter who went from LFA to the UFC. So when I see a fighter on a card like this that has 2 wins in LFA as a pro, I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. I am paying close attention, because I don't think people understand the level of talent that's in LFA. It's pretty incredible. There's some great fighters coming out of LFA, and they have been for a long time. So I was really, really excited about this fight. And Jackson McVeigh, he delivered, man. He delivered. And I noticed immediately his clinch work is phenomenal. He was throwing in these really nice knees to the body, and I love to see that. I love to see fighters invest in the body. Throw the body shots. Throw them. Because what it does is, whether or not it hurts your opponent or knocks him out or whatever, like, you're not necessarily concerned about that. You're trying to wear them out, and you're trying to hurt them in other ways. So that way, maybe they don't see it coming when you throw a head kick. Maybe they don't see it coming when you throw a 1-2. Maybe they don't see that you throw a jab to the head and then a 2 to the body, and then you throw a hook to the head, or whatever you do. I think it's good to invest in the body, and I'm glad to see more fighters kind of doing that and implementing that into their game plan. And then, yeah, Jackson was just stringing together combinations, and I think he knocked the guy out while he was standing. He was right behind, he was like right in front of the cage. So it was like, I guess, kind of harder for him to just like fall down, but it looked like he was standing up, but he was knocked out cold while he was standing. And then he like fell down after the ref called it, I guess. But 42 seconds. Yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, 42-second knockout. So the first round, 42 seconds. That is a heck of a win for Jackson McVeigh. So congrats to Jackson McVeigh. That was an incredible performance. I don't think it could have gone more flawlessly than that. I mean, it was just beautiful. Beautiful striking, kickboxing, all of it. It was just fantastic. And then the next fight, I was so excited for this one too. This was probably the one I was like the second most excited for. This was Max Choriev versus Zach Davis. And this was another MMA fight. So another pro MMA fight. And this one was at 170. The previous fight, actually, I forgot to mention, that fight was a middleweight fight, and both guys were 6'4", so huge middleweights. So that's really exciting. But anyway, so going back to Max Choriev, so this was at 170, so a welterweight fight, and man, that was an incredible performance by Max Choriev. And I was really excited about this too, because I'd heard a lot of hype about him. And I believe he trains out of ES MMA and Fitness, which I've noticed there's a lot of killers coming out of that gym. Definitely, I've been paying a lot of attention to what they're doing over there, because whatever they're doing, it seems like it's working. And maybe that's just because they have that great camaraderie there. You know, iron sharpens iron. So when you have a bunch of people at the same gym and they're all winning and, you know, they're getting better, making improvements, you make each other better. So I think that's kind of part of it. And he also had Joaquin Buckley in his corner. So having, you know, a UFC vet in your corner, somebody who's currently on the UFC roster, that's huge. And that's only going to help you. So so Max Choriev, he ended up winning that fight via submission in the second round. And man, that was just a great performance. He is so well-rounded. He showed us that he does not really have holes in his game. He's got great wrestling. He's got great submissions. He's got great striking. Because in the beginning of the fight, they were standing up and they were striking. And he was doing a fantastic job. I mean, it was great. And I'm glad that it wasn't just a quick submission or a quick knockout or anything like that, because he got to show us that he's got a bunch of tools in his toolbox. He's got wrestling, he's got jiu-jitsu, he's got striking, he's got kickboxing, he's got boxing, he's got it all. And that is exactly what you want to see. He looked like a UFC caliber fighter in there. And you could tell just by looking at him, even when the fight first started, you could tell, I think he's going to win this fight, just because he looked so focused. He looked so composed. He looked confident. He looked like he knew he was going to win this fight. He knew it already when he got in there. He's like, yeah, I'm going to win this fight. This is what I do. Let's go. Like, that's what he looked like. He looked so focused. And I follow him on Instagram, and I've kind of like looked at, you know, some of his posts and what he's doing. And he does a great job promoting himself as well. He does a great job of showcasing his hard work in the gym. You know, he's showing videos of him working out. He's showing, I think he has a podcast too. So he's just, that's everything. That is the full package that you want from a fighter. So I would not be surprised if we see him in the UFC. I really wouldn't be surprised at all. That was an incredible performance, and just, all around great fighter. I was super, super impressed. And then the last fight, the main event, Scott Etling versus Austin Midkiff. So this one was pretty quick. It was a round one submission. This was also a welterweight fight. It was at 170. And I believe it was a triangle choke. So, I think it was a triangle choke. I'm going to look it up actually to see how long the fight was, because it was pretty quick. I don't think it took him very long to get that submission. But I'm going to look it up just to make sure. Let's see. Yeah, it was 2 minutes into the first round, so that's pretty dang fast. And he did it from the bottom. So that, and that's normally what you see with triangle chokes. It's something you see more when somebody's on the bottom. But I was really impressed with that. I mean, that's just great jiu-jitsu right there. So very, very, very exciting. And that's the most exciting thing ever with grappling, I feel like, is when somebody gets a submission from the bottom. It's just like, because you're not expecting it. It just all of a sudden, like, oh no, he's in trouble. And I was like, oh, he might submit this guy. And then all of a sudden, tap, he's done. So I'm like, ooh, that's crazy. But Yeah, I love it. I love good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling, all that stuff. Like grappling, I love watching good grappling. That's just like probably my favorite thing about MMA is the grappling aspect of it. Obviously, love to watch knockouts. I love to watch great kickboxing and boxing. But when it's implemented in with the grappling, that's what makes it really exciting. That's what makes it MMA. So, yeah, fun stuff. Shout out to all the fighters that competed. I thought everybody did a great job. It looked like everybody really took it seriously. So that's always good to see. Yeah, it was a fun night of fights, and it was exciting. Kevin Engel got inducted into the Shamrock Hall of Fame, and I didn't realize how much fight experience he has. And I can't remember what gym he trains out of, but yeah, he's got a lot of experience. So I thought that was really cool that they did that for him. And I thought it was really cool too that Matt Hughes was there and Joaquin Buckley was there, and there was some really high level fighters that were out there watching. So that's really cool. And I'm sure the fighters gotta love that. When they're fighting, they're like, oh man, Joaquin Buckley is watching me fight. Like, how cool is this? And yeah, and Matt Hughes, like, imagine you're an amateur fighter and you're just getting started and Matt Hughes is watching you fight. Like, that's got to be the coolest thing ever. So I thought that was awesome. I thought it was a great event. So shout out to Shamrock for putting that on and putting on a great show. And shout out to the fighters. Number one shout out goes to the fighters, because without the fighters, none of this would happen. None of this would exist without you guys. So thank you for putting in the work. Thank you for making the sacrifices that you make. Thank you for putting it all on the line and making that walk to the octagon, which most people would never have the guts to do. So thank you guys, and congratulations to everyone who won. And if you didn't win, go back, start from scratch, go back to the drawing board, make some little improvements, and you'll get the next one. But thank you to all the fighters so much for putting on a great show. Anyways, let's transition to some other MMA. Let's talk about UFC. So I didn't catch all the fights. I'm not gonna lie. I tried. I had stuff to do while I was watching them. So I had them on Saturday morning. I woke up early to turn them on and watch the fights. But I didn't get to watch all of them, unfortunately. I did make sure to watch the main event and the co-main, but I didn't get to watch all of them, unfortunately. So I did see Tom Aspinall with a flawless performance. Yeah, I mean, that was just incredible. That was so fast. I mean, I was expecting Tom to win. Because I've seen Aspinall fight many times before, and I wasn't sure how he was going to be coming back from a major injury like that. Because, some fighters, you see them come back from an injury, and it either goes one of two ways. Either they're back to their old self, or they're even better, or they just can't seem to get back in their groove, and that's always tough. But I thought that... yeah, I think Tom really didn't have a bad moment in that fight. It was pretty much pure domination, start to finish. And it was a first round. Was that a knockout or a TKO? I can't remember. Okay, so it looks like that was a TKO win for Tom Aspinall. I thought it was, but I wanted to double check. But either way, it was incredible. It was 1 minute and 13 seconds into the first round. So, yeah, he really didn't give... Tybura any opportunities to have a single moment in that fight. It was just quick, and just, yeah, very violent, but in a good way. Tom Aspinall is a beast, man. And people forget Tom Aspinall also has really good grappling, because a lot of his other wins, he's had 3 wins by submission. He's had 10 via knockout. And then he is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So, and he's a huge heavyweight. Like, he's not super heavy, but he's very tall. He's 6'5", so he's very tall. And he's kind of similar to like a Cyril Gane, but I think the difference between Cyril Gane and Tom Aspinall is Tom Aspinall has a little bit more of a boxing style, and he has boxed before. Has a little bit more of a boxing style, a little bit narrower stance than Ciryl Gane. I think that actually works more in Aspinall's favor, just having that kind of a style rather than a kickboxing style. I think it works really well for him, especially at heavyweight, because sometimes as kickboxers, they kind of leave themselves open to getting caught a little bit more than like a boxer would. Boxers tend to have a little bit better like defense and better footwork. So I think that style just works really well for him. And like I said, he's got great grappling too. I mean, he's got it all. And it really makes me want to see him fight somebody like Pavlovich, because Pavlovich has that power. He's got, I would love to see that fight. I think it would be a great matchup. I think it would just be a really good fight. I don't know who would win. I honestly don't even know who I'd pick to win that fight, but I think it would be a fantastic fight. So hopefully they match those two up. I think he called out Ciryl Gane and he called out John Jones, obviously. I don't think John Jones is going to keep fighting though after he fights Stipe. I really don't. I think that's going to be John Jones' last fight. I think it's going to be Stipe's last fight too. I really think so. And who knows what happens? Maybe John Jones gets excited. If Tom Aspinall can get another win like that, I think he could maybe get John Jones excited about a fight with him. But I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I thought he was going to call out Pavlovich, but I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to call out Pavlovich because Pavlovich is kind of scary, but who knows? I would like to see them fight. I think that is the fight to make. I think if he can beat Pavlovich, then he should get a title shot. 100%. I just don't know what the title situation is going to look like. And it really makes me want to see him fight somebody like Francis Ngannou. And it makes me sad that Francis isn't in the UFC anymore, because now there's like all these great matchups for him. There's like Pavlovich and Aspinall and John Jones is back. And it's like, oh, come on, Francis, come back. But Francis is getting that bag. So it's okay. It's okay, Francis. You keep doing you, because whatever you're doing, it's working out great for you, because he got the fight with Tyson Fury. And originally, I heard it was supposed to be an exhibition fight and it wasn't going to go on the record. But then I heard that it is going to go on the record and it is an official fight. So that makes me a lot more excited about it. So I'm really glad that's happening. But I think it's supposed to happen right after. Let's see, when is that fight? Because I need to make sure I know. I need to make sure I know when that's going on. Man, that's going to be. Obviously, I think Tyson Fury is going to win. He's a boxer. Like, Francis isn't a boxer. But Francis does have some power. But I just don't see him being able to beat Tyson Fury in a boxing match. I think he would destroy him in MMA in like 10 seconds. I don't think Tyson Fury wouldn't last a minute with Francis in an octagon. No way. No way. I think Francis will last longer with Tyson in a boxing match than Tyson would last with Ngannou in an MMA match. That's my opinion on this matchup, okay? So I'm not hating on Francis. I think whatever he's doing, I mean, he's getting the freaking bag. He is going to make so much money off this fight. It's absolutely insane. So I don't think he's really that concerned about winning. I think he's just trying to make money, honestly, which is good. That's what he should be doing. So yeah, let me see. When does this fight go down? October 28th. Yeah. So it's going to be a week after the Abu Dhabi card, because if I remember correctly, UFC Abu Dhabi, when is that fight going down? Because that's going to be Islam versus Charles, which I want to talk about that too, maybe later on. Yeah, Saturday, October 21st is going to be UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. So the UFC's got to do a good job promoting that, because if they don't, then I think a lot of people are going to it's going to be overshadowed maybe by the Francis Fury fight, which it doesn't seem that big right now. Like, I mean, people are talking about it, but people aren't necessarily like super excited about it yet. But I think the month leading up to that fight, I think people are really going to start talking about it. Like, it's going to be a big hype. Whereas Islam versus Charles, this is a rematch. We've already seen it before. We kind of know how it's going to go a little bit. I mean, yeah, we saw Islam fought Volk and almost lost that fight, but Volk's a different fighter than Charles. Styles make fights is basically what I'm saying. I think maybe Islam got a little complacent in the Volk fight. I don't think that the second fight with Volkanovski is going to have the same result. I do think Volkanovski has improved even more since that fight, but I really don't see it going much differently. I just don't. I don't even see the fight with Charles going much differently due to the fact that, first of all, it's in Abu Dhabi. So it's basically like hometown advantage for Islam, which I was hoping they would do the rematch in Brazil. I really feel like it needs to happen in Brazil, but whatever. They already booked it, so it's fine. I do think it would be smart for them to have Volkanovski as a backup for that. Why would you not have a backup for a fight that big? I mean, I think that would be a good, maybe smart idea. And the reason why is because previously Charles said he wasn't going to be ready for this fight. So it's like now all of a sudden he's ready. And I think the reason why is because Volk just won in a super impressive fashion and showed some insanely good wrestling, which he probably did that a little bit to kind of peacock at Islam, like, hey, you think you're a good wrestler? Look at me. Look what I'm about to do to Yair. So I think that, maybe that pushed Charles a little bit. And he's like, oh, he's not going to take that title shot from me. No, this is my division. I'm at 155. Keep these featherweights at featherweight and let me do my thing in lightweight and let me get that title shot. So I think Charles was probably a little scared that if he didn't take this shot now, that he was going to lose that shot. And it's like, well, what if Volkanovski beats Islam? Then Charles has an even less chance of getting that rematch. And if he does get the rematch, it's not for the title. So it's like, yeah, I understand why Charles is wanting to take this fight so urgently now. But it does make me wonder, like, why was he not ready before and now he's ready? I don't know. So that makes me a little nervous. I want Charles to win. I really, really do. Man, that would be so cool if he could have the belt again, even for just one fight. And then if he loses again, whatever. But I just want to see him win the belt one more time, because I remember when he won the belt the first time, he was so happy, and it just like brought so much joy. Like, I don't know. It just made me so happy watching him win the belt. So I just really want to see him win again. And he's such an impressive guy. He's got such great jiu-jitsu. It's like you really just want to root for him. So we'll see. But yeah. Anyways, another fight that really caught my attention from this weekend was Paul Craig versus Andre Muniz. And this was, I think, Paul Craig's first fight at middleweight, maybe. Actually, I'm gonna fact check that, because I don't know for sure if he's fought at middleweight before. I do really like him at middleweight, though. I think that's where he belongs. I think he's gonna have more success at middleweight than he did at light heavyweight. I don't know how hard the weight cut was for him, though. So that would be my only concern, because he is 35. He's not getting younger. So cutting weight and moving down a weight class when you get older, that's not easy. So I don't know how. Maybe he had a great weight cut. Maybe he didn't have any issues. Hopefully he can keep doing it, because I really do like him at middleweight. I think it's great. It doesn't look like he's ever fought at middleweight before. So this is his first middleweight fight. And he won second round, TKO. So that's exactly what you want to see. And people forget, like, Paul Craig's beat Jamal Hill. And that wasn't even a submission. That was a TKO. He TKO'd Jamal Hill. I know he talks some trash and like some people think he's a little disrespectful. And even I've seen him like talk before and I'm like, what the heck? Like when he was being disrespectful to Shogun, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is Shogun. He's a freaking legend. Like show some respect. But other than that, like I really like Paul Craig. I think he's a great fighter. And he has 13 submission wins. Like out of his 17 wins in pro MMA, 13 of them are submission. And he has the most triangle chokes in UFC history. So yeah, impressive guy. Very impressive jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I'm very excited to see his next fight at middleweight because it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And that division, if you have good jiu-jitsu at middleweight, I feel like you can have some good success. Like if he could get somebody like Adesanya to the ground, I mean, he's done. He's done. There's no way Adesanya is not going to get submitted by him if it goes to the ground. Now, getting it to the ground, that's going to be the hard part. I don't know about that. Getting Adesanya to the ground is not an easy task. But it does kind of make you wonder, like, how does Adesanya do against somebody like that who has insanely good submissions? So, yeah. Anyways, Molly McCann lost. I saw that. That was kind of sad. She was she was hyped so much. Dave Portnoy's probably crying right now. Oh my gosh. It sucks though, because like I was really excited to see, Patty and Molly like get like these hype trains. I was excited to see this like actually play out. I was hoping they would win, but it's tough. There's definitely some holes in their game, it seems like, for sure. But what are you gonna do? I'm trying to think if there was any other fights yesterday that stood out to me. Because like I said, I tried to watch all of them, but it was impossible. Yeah, I think that was pretty much the biggest things I wanted to talk about, fight-wise. Yeah. It was a good card, though. For a fight night, that was a good card. I know a lot of people probably didn't watch it because it was during the day. It started at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., so a lot of people probably didn't watch it. And let's see. I am going to do some predictions for UFC 291. So I'm going to pull that one up. I am so excited for this. Y'all have no idea. No freaking idea how excited I am for this. Okay. I'm going to pull this up here. So this fight is Saturday, July 29th, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So the main card starts at 9 Central time. That's my time zone, but 10 o'clock Eastern time for you East Coast peeps. And then the prelims start at 7 Central time. Early prelims start at 5:30 Central time. So this is going to be a fully stacked card. Oh, this is going to be awesome. I am so excited for this. Holy crap. Okay, so let's look at the card. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's start with the prelims. We'll start with the early prelims. How about that? Oh, kicking off the early prelims. Miranda Maverick versus Priscilla Cachoeira. That's going to be fun. So Brazilian fighter versus Miranda Maverick, who's pretty much, I would say she's pretty well-rounded. She lost her last fight. I don't know what happened. Hopefully she comes back because I really like Miranda Maverick. I think she's really talented. Uros Medic versus Matthew Semmelsberger. That'll be a good fight. I'm really excited about that fight. Because Medic, I believe, was on Contender Series. I think. I don't know. I don't remember. Was he? Gosh, my memory is so bad. He lost to Jalen Turner. That was like a couple years ago. And then I think the last time he fought was Morales Ferrer, and Medic won that fight. And that was a knockout or TKO. And that was a year ago. So it's been a year since he fought. But he's good. And Matthew Semmelsberger is good too. So that's a fun fight. That is going to be a fun fight. Let's see what else we got. CJ Vergara versus Vinicius Salvador. I've seen Salvador fight before. I don't remember much about it. That's a flyweight fight. So that'll be fun. It'll be a fast-paced, fun 125 bout. I mean, I always love watching, like I said, I love watching the lower weight classes. It's always fun. Jake Matthews versus Miguel Baeza. That's a good fight. That'll be fun. And then Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. That's a middleweight fight. Gabriel Bonfim versus Trevin Giles. I want to say Bonfim just fought recently. At least I thought he did. Yeah, he fought in January. And he beat Lazez. 49 seconds into the first round of submission. Yeah, that'll be exciting. And Trevin Giles. I think I'd probably lean toward Trevin Giles winning that fight, but who knows? That'll be a really interesting fight. Okay, and then to close out the prelims, this is a little weird. This is a little weird to me, I'm not going to lie. Derek Lewis is on the prelims. What is happening? That's how stacked this card is. This card is so stacked that they had to put Derek Lewis on the prelims. Derek Lewis isn't a prelim fighter. I get why they put it, though, because it's kind of like the main event of the prelims, because the prelims are going to be on ABC and ESPN. So people that don't want to pay for the pay-per-view, it's like, this is their main event. So I kind of get why they did that. And that's kind of the reasoning behind the Robbie Lawler one, too. It was like, so that way more people could watch it. That's kind of why they did it. So it's not a disrespect thing. It's just, and I don't think it makes a difference how they get paid if it's on the prelims versus main card. So whatever. But yeah, so Derek Lewis is fighting Marcos Roguero de Lima. Man, that's going to be... It's always fun watching Derek Lewis fight because there's like this little saying where it's like, yeah, MMA doesn't work on Derek Lewis because it's like he'll get his butt whooped literally for the whole fight. Like when he was fighting Blades, for example, got his butt whooped the whole fight and then knocked him out cold. You know, just flatlined him. So, and that could very well happen to De Lima. We'll see. I don't know, but it's always fun to see Derek Lewis fight. I mean, he's had some of the best moments on the mic. He's one of the funniest fighters in all of MMA. I always love watching Derek Lewis, and I think I'm more excited to see Derek Lewis's post-fight interview than I am to see his actual fight. So yeah, it'll be fun. I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna pick Derek Lewis on that one. Maybe Derek Lewis will surprise us, get a little knockout, and get back in the win column. I mean, he's still ranked. He's still in the top 15. He's number 11 right now. So maybe he can crack his way back to the top 10 if he can get a nice knockout win against De Lima. That would be great. So we'll see. First fight of the main card, Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Ooh, that's a tough one. So Michael Chiesa has incredible grappling, and we've seen Kevin show some weaknesses with some really good grapplers where he just kind of gets ragdolled. He doesn't necessarily get finished that much, but he does sometimes struggle with good wrestlers, good grapplers. So that would be the only concern that I have for Kevin Holland, but ultimately, I'm always going to pick Kevin Holland every time. I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters. Seriously. How can you not love that guy? He will fight anyone. He would fight himself if he could. Like, he will literally go in there and fight anybody. He'll fight him the same day. He does not care. He's got to be the most active fighter in the UFC. And I don't think he's that old. Like, he's still pretty young. So he's still got a lot to learn, a lot to grow. It's been really fun to see the way his career has evolved. Because I remember watching him on the prelims, like early prelims. And I was like, who is this guy? I'm like, I like this guy. This guy's fun. Like, he's got great energy. He's good on the mic. He's not afraid to call people out. He's not afraid to fight anybody. So, yeah, I thought that was really cool just to see. And now he's on a pay-per-view main card, and he's been on some really, really big cards. So it's really exciting to see him. I'm going to take Kevin Holland on that one, I think. But, man, Michael Chiesa, he's dangerous on the ground. So Kevin's really got to be careful. Hopefully he can try to keep it standing. I think that would probably be my best advice for him. But I'm not a coach. I'm not a fighter. So I'm not even going to pretend that I'm the expert on that. I think he's probably got a pretty good game plan. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next fight, Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green. So, Tony. Tony's one of my favorite fighters. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Tony Ferguson fan. I have been for a long time. I love watching Tony fight. He's just so entertaining. He's so entertaining. And just such a unique person, such a unique character. And that's one thing I really like about him. He has lost, I think, 5 in a row, maybe? Let me look. Tony Ferguson. Let me find you. I think it's been 5. I'm not 100% sure. But it's been quite a few that he has lost. And I'm nervous because I don't want him to get cut from the UFC. So I'm really hoping he can turn it around and win this one. And, it's actually, it's 5 in a row. Okay, so I was right. But look at who he's lost to. Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz. I mean, and Nate Diaz, I was at welterweight. And I think this is at lightweight. Yeah, this is at lightweight. I do think this is a winnable fight for Tony. And I have this joke. Where Tony, there's all these Tony Ferguson is the type of guy jokes. And I think Joey Diaz kind of started that whole thing. But my little thing is Tony Ferguson is the type of guy to lose 5 fights in a row to test his fans' loyalty. And it's so true. I don't know. It's just funny to me. It seems like he does everything with a purpose. He's such an interesting guy. But yeah, I've always been a huge Tony fan, always will be a huge Tony fan. I really hope he wins. I noticed that Bobby Green is a pretty big favorite on this fight. He's a -350 favorite, but I really do honestly think this is a winnable fight for Tony. I think Tony could either, use those elbows that he's known for, or use some jiu-jitsu. But the only thing with Tony is that he's got great submissions. He's got that great Darce choke, but his wrestling isn't necessarily there enough to be able to close the gap sometimes and get them to the ground to get in that position. He's much better submitting people off of his back. So I don't know. I'm going to go with Tony on this one. I know that sounds crazy and people are going to be like, what are you talking about? But I do think this is a winnable fight for Tony. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a knockout or a submission in this one. But Bobby Green's a dog, man. I don't know. He's another unique character. I mean, this is a fun fight. This is such a good fight. And it's such a good matchup too. I couldn't think of 2 better guys to fight each other than Tony Ferguson and Bobby Green. I mean, that's just perfect. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited, but I'm going to go with my guy, Tony, of course. Root for the underdog. And I'm just a huge Tony fan. So I hope he gets another win, turns it around, because I really like watching him fight in the UFC. So yeah, hopefully we can see Tony win one. Next fight is welterweight. Stephen Thompson versus Michelle Pereira. I'm going with Stephen Thompson on that one. I think Stephen Thompson is probably the best striker in the UFC. Maybe Adesanya is better, but I don't know. Stephen Thompson, people don't understand how good Stephen Thompson's striking is. It is absolutely insane how good he is. Yeah, so I'm going with Stephen Thompson on that one. I do love watching Michel Pereira, though, because he's a capoeira fighter, which I was talking about earlier, like Nuriel Henry in Shamrock. Michel Pereira, he's a capoeira fighter, so he does like some flashy stuff, does some like cartwheels, handstands, all kinds of crazy stuff. But I don't think you can do that with Stephen Thompson. I think Stephen Thompson is going to completely outclass him in this fight. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I don't think it's going to be a finish, but I think Stephen Thompson is just going to be a step ahead of him on everything. And I don't think you can make mistakes with Stephen Thompson. I don't think you can do flashy things with him. I don't think you can do any of that. So if Michel Pereira is a little bit more calm and cool and collected, maybe he'll win, but I'm going with Wonder Boy on that one. Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this fight. So excited. I really wish this was a 5-round fight, honestly. I think if it was a 5-round fight, I would definitely favor Pereira. But since it's 3 rounds, I think I'm going to lean toward Jan on this one. I think Jan is going to use his wrestling. We've seen Alex Pereira's grappling really isn't there yet, unless he's made some vast improvements, which hopefully he has. But from what I've seen so far, I would just think that Jan is going to use his wrestling, his strength, and all that to just dominate Pereira if he can. I don't think he's going to be able to finish him. I don't think he's going to be able to knock him out. I know he's got the legendary Polish power, but Alex Pereira is a genetic freak and has probably the most power of anyone I've seen at middleweight. So I imagine at light heavyweight, it's going to be even more. So Jan's got to be careful. I mean, you're in there with a high level kickboxer, and Jan's got power. He does, and he's got good wrestling. But I don't think it's going to be as easy for him to take Pereira down as it was for Israel, only because Adesanya, he's a lot smaller than Jan. So I think that was the biggest thing, because Adesanya is not an easy guy to take down. So I think just him being bigger was what won him that fight. So I think it is going to be a little bit tougher in this fight with Pereira, because Pereira is going to do a great job of keeping that distance and using his kicks. Yeah, I don't know. I think it could go either. That's the hardest fight on this card, I think, to pick. I really do, but I don't know. If Pereira knocks him out, I think it'll be early. I think it'll be like round 1 or 2. I really do. And I could easily see that happening. I could easily see Pereira knocking him out before Jan even has a chance to take him down. So I think it's either going to be a decision win for Jan, or I think it's going to be a round 1 early knockout for Pereira. That's my opinion on that fight. I think we'll know pretty early on who's going to win that fight. And then the main event, obviously I'm super excited for this one. So Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Man, this is a good fight. And they fought before. I'm really leaning toward I'm leaning toward Poirier on this one. And I usually tend to pick Poirier to win. I could see Gaethje possibly winning this fight, but I don't know. I think Dustin Poirier has more ways to win. You know, he could submit Gaethje, and we've seen Gaethje get submitted multiple times. He's got great kickboxing. He's got incredible boxing. Like, that's one thing I think is really underrated with Dustin, is that his boxing is so good, and he's such a well-rounded fighter. Like, he can beat you anywhere. He can beat you on the ground. He can beat you standing up. Like, whatever. He's like, where do you want to go? How do you want this fight to go? So I think the smartest thing for Dustin to do would probably be to use his boxing, try to get in the pocket, and then try to take Gaethje down. I think that would be the most logical game plan for him to have. But who knows? He might have something else up his sleeve. But I think that Dustin is probably going to take him down, try to submit him. That's what I would think. Just because we've seen Gaethje get submitted before, so it's like we know it's possible. But yeah, I think that's probably how it's going to play out. But Gaethje does have good takedown defense. He really does, and he looked really good in the Fiziev fight. Really good. So who knows? Maybe Gaethje surprises us. I mean, I feel like people really sleep on Gaethje a lot. And I even have. So I'm a little hesitant to just go and say, oh yeah, Poirier's going to win, because I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think it's going to go all 5 rounds. I think if Gaethje wins, it's going to go all 5 rounds. If Poirier wins, I think it'll be maybe like 4th or 5th round submission. I don't think it's going to happen early. I think he's going to have to work really hard for this win. So I'm going for Poirier in this fight, but I don't think it's going to be a one-sided fight. I think it's going to be very competitive. And then maybe in the later rounds, Dustin can maybe wear him out, get him to the ground, and try to submit him. But also, when you get to those later rounds, sometimes it's harder to submit them. So maybe he goes for a ground and pounder. I don't know. But I'm excited. And yeah, and that's for the BMF title, which I don't know the significance, of the title, because it's not like an actual title technically, but it is pretty cool to be like, yeah, I'm the BMF. What are you going to do? And I'm hoping that they actually do have Jorge present the belt. I think that would be so cool, because technically Masvidal is the BMF right now. So when these two fight, whoever wins, it's like Masvidal's gonna pass it on. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, I'm very excited for the fights this weekend. I had a great time watching the Shamrock fights, and I'm just so excited to keep supporting the local scene and keep watching these fighters grow and evolve, and maybe we'll see them in the UFC. I mean, shoot, Evan Elder, like I said, I watched him fight a couple years ago in Shamrock, and now he's in the UFC. So you never know. But yeah, great job to all the fighters. Thank you for putting on a great show. Thank you for inviting me. I had several fighters ask me if I was going to go because they really wanted me to watch their fight. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to try. I wasn't feeling well this week, so I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to go because my allergies have been killing me, which is why my voice kind of sounds weird. But ultimately, I was able to go, and I decided last minute, okay, I'm good. My allergies are still bad, but not bad enough to where I'm going to miss out on these exciting fights. So I'm glad I went. I'm glad I got to see it. And thank you to all the fighters. Thank you to Shamrock. Thank you to Jesse Finney for putting all this on. Yeah, excellent stuff. So yeah, I will see you guys next week when we recap this pay-per-view. And if there's any other fights going on, I don't think there's any PFL or bare knuckle going on this week. So it's probably just going to be UFC recap next week. And I've got another exciting episode planned for my other podcast next week, which will tie into the fight. So stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for listening, so much for watching today, however you consume this. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.